We're starting a, so to say, new series or a new part in our continual study of the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach in Chassidus. What we're going to do now, with the help of Hashem, is go through many places in Likutei Sichos. And if you want to know how I'm deciding where to follow or which index I'm using, so for the time being that we were doing until now, took us a long time, and we went through the entire entry of haOlam in the Sefer Halikutim Dach, the Chassidus of the Tzemach Tzedek, what he has for haOlam, which it started on page 508 and concluded on page 541. So it was a lot. And as I said, it took us a long time. And hopefully, at least we understood something. Now, after that, in Sefer Likutim, after all of the Tzemach Tzedek's explanations, then they made an index, references to all the places in Chassidus from all of the Rabbis, starting with the Alter Rebbe, where he speaks about haOlam, except for the Tzemach Tzedek, of course, because that's the part that we just did inside fully. So then, at the bottom of page Tov Kuf Mem Gimel 543, it says Likutei Sichos. And Likutei Sichos, just very briefly to remind us what that is. It is the edited talks, sermons of the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach that he said in public, and starting with 1950 and on. And these talks were prepared originally. The first 4 volumes are to be said over in different communities or in different synagogues, and even for a non-Chabad audience. And they are in Yiddish, which is the language that the Rabbeim all speak. So the first 4 volumes are Yiddish, and then after that, it alternates between Yiddish and Hebrew. From volume 5 and on, each volume is one of the 5 books, meaning there are talks on all of the parshias of the Torah and all of the festivals, including Hanukkah, Purim, and the Hasidic festivals, and so on. So volume 5 would be Bereshis, Genesis. Volume 6 would be Shmois, Exodus. Volume 7 would be Vayikra, Leviticus. Volume 8 would be Bamidbar, Numbers. Volume 9 would be Dvarim, Deuteronomy. And then volume 10 starts again. Then it's the next Sichos on Bereshis, and so on and so forth, all the way through volume 39. And then there's 2 volumes of 40. Be that as it may, all of these Sichos are edited, which means that the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach looked them over and takes responsibility for how they were prepared. And in many of them, he actually put a tremendous amount of time in the corrections and the editing and perfecting it, so it's coming out officially from him. So he is the author of these Sichos. So the way that it works is, and it's called Likutei Sichos, which literally means compilation of talks. So they reference the volume and the page, and then in parentheses, they write what it's about, just like in a couple of words, what he's talking about about the nations of the world. So it starts with Aleph, and it goes all the way through volume 15. Now, there's much more afterwards, especially volume 26, the famous Sikha, when he instituted and initiated the campaign of the 7 Noachide commandments. The reason it doesn't go past volume 15 is because when Sefer Likutim came out originally back in 1982, that's all the volumes basically that existed. So it's only up to that point. So it really, there's more, but we could worry about that once we finish going through these dozens of sichas. Now, mind you, some of them is not an entire sicha that's relevant. It might just be a page or a paragraph. So we'll have to judge as we go along. And one more quick introduction. Remember, these sichas are being said to the Jew, to the Hasidim. So what we can glean from it sometimes is going to be in an indirect fashion. Like he's going to be saying the difference between the Jew and the non-Jew, so that will give us understanding of what the non-Jew is, but the focal point, so to say, is the Jew. Okay, so we're going to do, starting with the second Sicha, which is Likutei Sichos, volume 1, page 239. However, in order to make it easier, the committee that puts out these sichas, about 20 years ago, they rearranged all the sichas without touching them at all, without tampering with them. They rearranged them according to the order of how they're in the parshas. So now, instead of looking for a sicha on a particular parsha, having to look at volume 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, etc. So they took all the sichas on the parsha of Bereshis and put it in one volume, one book. All the sichas on the second parsha Noach and did the same, and so on. So this volume is 26 in the Parshios, the black set, and it has in it all the talks from Likutei Sichos on the Parshios of Tazria and Mitzaira. So in the book that we're going to be using, it's volume 26, page 234. Okay, let us begin. And this one is in Yiddish. Heintiker Shabbos. Oh, and the Sicha was said in 1957 on Shabbos Parshas Mitzaira of 1957, but he edited it and it came out a couple years later.
Rabbi Turen, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
On the very top, well, not the very top, second from the top, there's like a subtitle. It says 239 to 243. What is that?
That's exactly what I was saying. That's really where it originally is in.
Okay.
Likutei Sichos, volume 1.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So that says Likutei Sichos, Chelek Aleph, Amudim pages 239 to 243.
Excellent.
So in other words, if somebody was to, how do you put it, professionally
reference
this Sicha, you'd really say that it's in volume 1, page 239. Instead of saying Parshios, volume 26, page 234. Okay.
Thank you.
But this is exactly copy of what it is in volume 1, page 239 and on. Heintiker Shabbos. This Shabbos, V'yala Shabbos Hashana, as all the Shabboses of the year, is verbunden, is connected, mit a gewisser Parsha von Torah, with a particular Parsha in the Torah. Right? Every Shabbos we read in the shul, in the Torah, a particular portion. There's 53 portions. Every Shabbos we read one. We call up 7 people to the Torah, and we read. So the first week we do Bereshis, second week we do Noach, third week Lech Lecha, and so on. Every Shabbos. And therefore the theme of that Shabbos, in a sense, is what the Parsha is. And that's very traditional. And like everybody does it. Like if you're going to be in a shul or at a kiddush or at someone's house, chances are, like 9 out of 10, that if someone is going to say a Dvar Torah, they're going to say some Torah thought, it's going to be connected to that week's Parsha. So like every week, this Shabbos is connected to a particular Parsha. And now in the dash, the acronym, Kvoid Kedushas, which is a title of tremendous respect to a holy person such as a Rebbe. It literally means his honored holiness. Moiri V'chomi, my teacher and father-in-law. Admor, which stands for Adinenu, Mereinu, V'Rabbeinu, which is Rebbe. So my father-in-law, which is the way that the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach always refers to his predecessor, the sixth Rebbe, or as many people call him, the previous Rebbe. So the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach, I don't think ever called him the previous Rebbe, because that would A, imply that he is the current Rebbe, and out of humility, he almost never makes that implication. And B, he once told someone that when you say previous one, that's like pushing him away, that he's no longer current. So he doesn't want to use the term previous. At any rate, my father-in-law, the Rebbe, fleckt sich, used to, mishtamet sein, refrain from, zu der Monin, of mentioning in verbally, dem Nomen, the name from der Heintiker Parsha of today's Parsha. In other words, the Parsha is Mitzoira. Mitzoira is the person who miraculously got a sickness as generally as a punishment, but not always. And it was either on the skin or the hair or their garments or their furniture or the walls of their house. And people, out of lack of a better word, they mistakenly translated as leprosy. It's not leprosy because leprosy is a specific type of a skin disease or whatever, which for that the person goes to a physician to get it taken care of. He gives you pills or cream or whatever the case is. Mitzaira looks like that. That's why they call it that, but it's not a natural phenomena, and you don't go to any doctor to take care of it. And the Torah speaks about what makes a person pure, what makes him impure, and how he purifies himself, and it's from the most complicated and complex laws. So Mitzaira, in the simple level, is a very negative thing. So the sixth Rebbe, which many of us call him the Rebbe Rayatz, which would be an acronym of his name, Rabbeinu Yosef Yitzchak. So the sixth Rebbe avoided referring to this parsha by name. You would almost never hear him say Parshas Mitzoira. In verschiedene Sefarim, in various Jewish books, Verti Parsha nit gerufen mit ihr Nomen. The parsha is actually not called by its name. They don't say, but how do you reference it? What do you call it? Nor rather, Parshas Tahara, the parsha of purity, which oftentimes what we do is we say something. What's the term? When you say the opposite, not sarcasm.
Negative,
what is it?
Or the counter negative? Or
well, we want to say only positive. So like the Talmud, a lot of times when it speaks about negative things about the Jews or punishment about the Jews, it calls them the enemies of the Jews, because we don't want to say something negative about Jews, so we say the enemies, this negative thing about the enemies of the Jews. Or if you want to say something impure, we'll say the opposite, and you're supposed to understand from the context that you actually mean impure when we say pure. So it's not sarcasm. It's there's a word for it when you say the opposite of what you mean. Well, anyway.
the type of humor are you referring to?
No. It's not being humorous. It's
an illusion.
No. Something with language. Anyway. So, in certain Jewish books, it refers to this parsha by the name of Parshas Tahara. In other words, it gives it a new name. Instead of calling it Parshas Mitzaira, it calls it the parsha of purity. Aber, however, Void Kedushas, Moiri Vechami Admor, my father-in-law, the Rebbe, Flektir Bichlal Nitvelin Rufen, he in general didn't want to even call it Mitvelchen Seiz Nomen, with whatever name it is at all. He didn't even want to call it by a different name. He avoided calling it by any title. Unmerstens, and mostly, schreiben, to write, oder zogen, or to say, nor dem Tag fun Chodesh, just the day of the month, v'chadoim, and the like. In other words, it's very common in Jewish tradition or in rabbinic literature that when someone writes, let's say, a letter, or he's dating a document or something, it's very common that you write what day of the week it is to this and this parsha. So you would write it's Yom Dalit, which means fourth day, or Yom Revi'i, leparshas Nosai, to the Torah portion of Nosai, in addition to writing the date. So you write the day of the week of which parsha, because otherwise, what do you mean day of the week? How do I know what the week you're talking about? There's like 50 Sundays in a week, in a year. There's 50 Mondays in a year. Well, what do you mean? What are you doing? So you write the parsha. Today is Monday of parsha such and such. So he wouldn't do that when it came to this week. He would just write the date because he wanted to avoid verbally or in writing referring to this parsha as much as he could. In addition to that, now it's also the month of Nisan when this talk was said. This was the Shabbos before Pesach. There's Man Fun Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is the time of our exodus from Egypt. When Viale Inyanim, and as all matters, is Oich das was men leint die Heintiker Parsha b'chodesh Nisan b'ashkacha pratis. Like everything, the fact that we read this Torah portion, which in this case would be Mitzayra, in the month of Nisan is of divine intervention. So it's not coincidental. So it has to have a connection to the month as well. And that is because both of these things have a connection between them. If this is the Parsha and we're reading it in this particular season or month, that means that they have to have a connection. Okay, Beis. If Yitzias Mitzrayim, regarding the exodus from Egypt, Zogin Razal, Rabbi Seinu Zichreinu Livracha, our rabbis of blessed memory state. And then a footnote, he references where the source is. What does it say? Bizchus ha'emuna, in the merit of the belief, of the faith. Nigalu avisenu mimitzrayim, our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. In other words, what merit did they have? They left Egypt, according to this particular statement, it was the merit of emuna. That's what we're going to get into in this sikha about emuna. Emuna meaning faith or belief. Is there diuk in them? So the precision that we're making over here, the specific nuance here, emuna dafka. It says, particularly uses that word of emuna, faith. Nita saga nor emuna, not comprehension, rather emuna. It doesn't say that we left Egypt in the merit of our comprehending God or something of that nature. It says emuna in contrast to hasaga, which means grasp. Was is der uftu fun emuna? What is the accomplishment? What is the advantage of faith, of emuna? Und was is ihr Sheiches mit Yitzias Mitzrayim? And what is the connection of emuna with the exodus from Egypt? As dafka in ears chus, that it's specifically in that merit, Nigalu avisenu mitzrayim, our forefathers were redeemed from Egypt. Why? Specifically because of emuna. How does that connect to letting us out of Egypt? Okay, got it on the bottom of the right-hand column, last three lines.
Yeah.
Oich chasidei umos haOlam. Also, the chasidei umos haOlam, Zainen Moide, they also admit, acknowledge, in Mitzius Haboire, in the existence of the Creator. In other words, what makes that so unique for the Jews that they got to leave Egypt? That's not uniquely a Jewish thing. Chasidei Umos haOlam also acknowledge the existence of the Creator. By they is das aber nit kein emuna. However, by them, it's not emuna.
It's just an acknowledgement. It's not faith.
Nor, rather, what is it? Top of the next column. An inyan, a theme, an idea, which is mandated because of intelligence. They come to that conclusion intellectually. There has to be a creator because rational intelligence says so. Wenn man tracht sich herein, when one thinks deeply in Metzius haOlam, in the existence of the world, you analyze, you study the existence of the world, of the universe. Is mitzadem klal, because there is a rule. This is a logical rule. Ein davar oises atzmai. Nothing makes itself. Everything has to come from somewhere and have a source. Nothing creates itself. Kumt men zu, then we arrive at a hakara, a recognition, as es is da, that there is, there was hot ir bashafen, that individual, that one that created it, unfirt mit ir on, and is running it, is conducting it. In other words, logically, you have to come to the conclusion that there has to be the one source for existence of the universe, any existence. So it's a very logical conclusion to come to. And even without getting sidetracked, but even in the, let's say, theory of evolution, which we categorically reject, in the theory of evolution, or as they call it, the Big Bang Theory, so one of the cute lines or whatever in the debates, so what do we say to argue them? We said, what went bang? Or who banged? Who went bang? You're saying that all of these things came together. Where'd they come from? Well, they were. What do you mean they were? So you're just really moving it a step. Instead of saying creator, you're saying, well, these things just what? Someone had to orchestrate something at some point, no matter how far back you go. So that's logic. Vibald, since, as be'etzem, that in essence, legt sich, it sits by they, by them, by the Chassidim haOlam, elikus, godliness, neat up, does not sit. In essence, a non-Jew doesn't get godliness, nor the Metzius fun Welt. It's just rather that the existence of the universe brings them to Haida in Elikus, to admitting, acknowledging that there is Hashem. Izer Haida, so their recognition or their admittance, oich nor, is also only oif viful Welt is das machriach, only to the extent that the universe forces it. They're only going to admit the existence of Hashem to the extent that the world forces that to be a true fact. Das heißt, Dalet Hey, it's very common in these volumes of the Likutei Sichos. It's an acronym of two Yiddish words, which means, this means to say. Das heißt, this means, oy viful alikus is shayach zu Welt, to the extent that godliness is associated with the universe, umitzumtzam bilevushe hateva, and is contracted into the garments of nature. Oif hecher fun Welt, with regards to higher than the universe, unteva, and higher than nature, seinen ze nit moide, they do not acknowledge, they don't admit that. So in other words, there's clearly a limit to what point the non-Jews, including Chassidim haOlam, go up to in their acknowledgement, in their acceptance of the Creator, as long as it has to do with the universe, with an existence, with a being. But higher than that, they don't deal with. Aber, however, the emuna fun Yidden, the emuna, the faith of Jews, kommt nit fun Welt, does not come from the universe. No, it's the whole approach is a different starting point. By the nations of the world, they come to understand and believe and recognize and accept God because of the universe. By Jews, it doesn't start from the universe. Eden seinen be'etzem verbunden mit Elikus. Jews are in essence connected and bound up with godliness. B'meile, Therefore, automatically, legt sich bei sie ab Gettlichkeit. So it sits with them automatically the concept of godliness. It's a natural recognition that a Jew has. Punkt wie bei haOlam. Just like, exactly like by the nations of the world, is their inyan olam, their idea, their theme is universe. Azoy is by Yidden their inyan elikus. So too, by Jews, their idea, their theme is godliness. B'meile is indemnito ken agbalas hateva. Therefore, automatically, by definition, by the Jew, there's no limitation of nature when you're dealing with the belief system. Und es legt sich bei sie ab bepshitus, and therefore it sits by them in the most simplistic, obvious way. Oich elikus shelamayla me'ateva, godliness, the way it also transcends and is above nature. Okay, we're going to have to stop here for both of us.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was a good start.
Yeah.
Starting to get interesting. Thank you so much, Rabbi Turen. I appreciate it. See you, God willing, tomorrow and also next week.
Well, tomorrow, who's running it? Is Bob away?
Bob said he was going to run it, yeah.
Okay. Hope it goes well.
Okay, be well.
Thank you as well. Take care.